Okay, Andy here, and we are going to take a look at The Adventures of Robin Hood from Kosmos Games. This is a cooperative, story-driven game where we are going to play Robin Hood and his merry men trying to solve all of the problems of the Sherwood and Nottingham over the course of a 216-page novel-like scenario book. And that is going to be the campaign, is everything contained inside of this book. So this game is amazing for families, for anyone who's looking for a really accessible campaign-based game, because a lot of the cool stuff in this game is the components and the story interactions, and less so like intricate mechanics or super well balanced mechanics or anything like that. So for anybody who's just looking for like a good sit down, tell a story romp through Sherwood Forest, this is an amazing choice. The game teaches you as you go through. So when you first open the box, you're going to get a piece of paper staring at you that just says, here are the core elements of setting up. Don't read any further than this in the info sheets or the rules. We're going to teach you the rules as you go through the actual game. So once you are through the initial setup on that sheet, it's going to throw you right into that book. And this book covers everything from mechanics to actual like story blocks to the ways you'll actually advance through your goals and objectives and kind of the win and loss conditions as well. And that's going to include very choose-your-own-adventure style interactions with characters in the story. So you might come across a town crier or a guard or a merchant, and they'll ask you questions or give you choices that you have to make that will advance the story in one way or another. It is printed in an actual hardcover novel-like book, and it's got, you know, that style printing on the pages, and it's even got the bookmarks in there like you'd find in a nicer hardcover book. So this thing is just amazing. Other things that make this game awesome, go right to the board. The board is made up of a ton of these little hidden information windows that flip out, so they're just cardboard punched into cardboard, where the back sides are often different from the front side, and we will discover secret information and interact with story elements set forth by the book by flipping those parts of the board. So that's one thing that we'll be moving our characters toward. Speaking of movement in this game is one of the coolest elements of it, and one of the coolest movement systems I've seen in a game. So say it was Robin Hood's turn here. On your turn, the first thing you'll do is move, and you often will want to do some amount of moving, not necessarily always, but each character has got two standing figures, one for the beginning of your move where you were at the beginning of your turn, and one for where you're going to end up standing at the end of your turn, and three movement figures that you will use to actually move your figure. So you can move any distance as long as it lines up with the end where your standing figure is at the end. So there's a guard in this space here. You might be able to see if I can get my Robin to be in contact with that guard at the end of my moves here. That is awesome. That means I can fight that guard at the end of my turn, which will get me various advantages. If I can do it without using my long figure, which I can't do in this case because there is a castle obstacle. Forests count as obstacles, the castle terrain count as obstacles, rivers count as obstacles, and rocks count as obstacles, so you can't move over those. It's a free movement game, but you cannot move over obstacles. But if I can get somewhere that I want to go without using my long movement, so sacrificing that for the turn, I get to put a white cube in our random bag of cubes and discs here, and that will help me later on, so keep that in mind. Say, instead, that I moved over to this story element here. The other thing I can do, rather than defeating guards at the end of my turn, if I get to a story element, is to interact with that space on the board. So I'll flip that over. I will see what story elements the scenario book gives me about that. And then that will be the end of my turn after I've done those things. As a scenario example, in one of the first missions, Robin is having bad nightmares about the guardian of the forest who lives out here kind of in a glade. So his first thing that he'll need to do in that mission is to go and examine the guardian of the forest from his starting position so that he can see what's going on there. And you will often have different initial objectives for different characters, so we'll have players kind of going off on their own little missions and then reconvening to try to accomplish greater objectives over the course of a mission as well. The bag serves many purposes. There are all of the random elements in the game can be found in this bag. So there are discs, there are cubes, eventually there will be cardboard seals, so you're always just going into the bag digging for the shape that you need at that time. We always determine who's going to go next by drawing a disc from the bag, and that is the next player's turn. If we draw the red disc, that means dark events happen and we get one step closer to running out of time. We've got these little time markers here. Certain bad events that occur over the course of the game will cause the local community to lose hope, which is represented by this little bard figure here, and if the bard reaches the 0 on that track and there is 0 hope remaining, that means time starts to get lost at double speed. The other thing we're going to do with the bag is whenever we choose at the end of our turn to end our turn and fight a guard, we're going to draw 3 cubes from the bag, and our goal in drawing those cubes is to draw at least 1 white cube. If you can draw a white cube, you are in the clear, you have defeated that guard, but if you draw only violet cubes over all 3 of those, which game elements will be putting into the bag over the course of it, then that means you did not defeat the guard and will have to try again another time. All of the cubes you draw in the course of trying to defeat a guard are going to get discarded. So any white cubes we had put in there also get discarded. And that is kind of how the randomization of the cubes and the discs goes in there. There are also, as you will see, elements in the game board that are hidden in shade, as well as elements that are hidden in light. I believe this is especially influential once the local community has lost all hope. All the guards start showing up and will capture any merry men that they see out in the open, so we begin needing to jump between shaded elements so that we won't get caught by those guards. We will also eventually, which I think is so cool, start being able to flip hidden pathways. So we've got like forest pathways that are up above the trees that we can move through without getting caught, and those eventually lead us into the actual castle if we can find the right pathways. This board is immense. I'll just give you a sense of the terrain you're traversing there, and I'll try to get a few extra shots of the game board and game elements that are a little bit harder to see here. So like I said, the really cool parts of this game are going to be the components and kind of the wow factor that comes along with those punchable story elements on the actual game board, and the wow factor of how you actually get to move your minis, which I think is so cool. And that about does it for the basic overview of Robin Hood. There's obviously a ton more to this game, tons more colors of cubes, eventually some very bad baddies start to show up, but that is only really mechanics that you start to dive into as you get further into those later missions. So those are secrets that one is not meant to know until the time comes. Thank you much. We'll see you next time.